What is going on, everyone? Nostalgia95 coming at you with another explaining Digimon DIGIVOLUTION line video. This one is going to be a little bit special because we are basically going to compare two Digimon that are fundamentally the same and yet very different. I'm talking about Palmon, who we discussed in explaining Palmon DIGIVOLUTION line video. I'll put a link towards this video in the description box. And LALAMON, who also got its own video, the explaining LALAMON DIGIVOLUTION line video, and I will also put that video in the description box. Before we go straight ahead, let me first thank all my Patreon supporters for their support. If you are a Patreon member, make sure to check this video to the end because I have a little surprise for you. Also, this video is sponsored by Kongo Network, a YouTube channel dedicated to explaining the history of the Congo, the African country where my roots would take me to. You are free to take a look, most videos are translated in English. I do have to say a big thanks for all your comments in the Nostalgia95 community page. You guys had so much to say about these two Digimon, and that is of no surprise. So I'm going to take a few of your comments and discuss them to show all those who are listening that these Digimon have multiple layers, multiple dimensions behind their design and what they are trying to represent. One thing I noticed is that Palmon and Lalamon are not of the same type, even though in appearance you might say they are. Palmon is a vegetation Digimon while Lalamon is a plant Digimon, and to best understand the differences you simply need to look at their abilities. Palmon is a vegetation type because it has special qualities which cannot be found back in Lalamon. Vegetation is defined as growing plants, and another definition would say that vegetation refers to the ground cover provided by plants. And this is what Palmon is constantly doing. In order to grow, it usually buries its root-like feet under the ground and absorbs nutrients. Of course, you can see a plant or a flower on its head making you believe that it is a plant type, but Palmon is classified as a vegetation type. In fact, it is classified as an unusual vegetation type because of its appearance and special qualities. Lalamon cannot do something remotely close to absorbing nutrients. This shows that this Digimon is not really what we could consider as Palmon's counterpart, or rival, maybe better said. Palmon's rival would be Floramon. If you look at its feet, you'll quickly come to realize that they are similar to Palmon's. Both even have similar movesets, and this explains why Floramon sees Palmon as its rival. We should make a comparison video about both of them. I think it's going to be very interesting. Now, when it comes to the Palmon and Lalamon lines, at some point you're going to see that despite their differences as rookies, they are going to develop into similar Digimon, and that is when the comments in the Nostalgia95 community page will come in handy. We will use them because many had more than a few things to say. I can see both Lalamon and Palmon living in similar ecosystems. After all, they both belong to the Jungle Troopers, members of this field dwell in tropical areas, and the Wind Garden family, whose members dwell in grassy or lofty areas. As Sunshine Sherbet even said, I can see these two competing for areas with the most sunlight and water. And to be honest, I can see that too. As most of you would know, and I'm mostly talking to those who followed me for a while now, all Digimon sort of live their own lives in their own way. Some have cognitive abilities similar to humans and some have not, and based on that, there is so much that can happen. For example, as I already explained, Floramon sees Palmon as a rival. Why would that be? Is it because they are similar? Is it because the other can also take nutrients which can be vital for survival? It can be anything. Another thing to show you that Digimon sort of live their lives, Palmon and its line does get along just fine with Fanbimon, and that is because just like real bees, Fanbimon depend on the data left on fields of flowers or vegetation to use as raw materials. And in Fanbimon's case, it is not to make honey or so, but to construct what is called a royal base. An area we briefly discussed in explaining Fanbimon DIGIVOLUTION line video, but just know that Digimon live their own lives may depend on their nature or their abilities to survive. Survival of the fittest basically. And here we're talking about how plant/vegetation Digimon are trying to survive or are trying to cooperate with their environment. I can tell you right away that the dinosaur type, for example, are way different in their way of doing. And I think it's going to be very interesting to put that into perspective in comparison to other vegetation/plant type Digimon. Now, Lalamon and Palmon in appearance do not really show many similarities, however, when you bring Togemon on the table, Palmon's champion, you already have an interesting similarity. Both Lalamon and Togemon have expressionless faces. Now Togemon is still a vegetation Digimon, as it can still store nutrient data within its body, enabling it to survive for a long time in an empty desert. Sunflowmon, as a plant-type Digimon, cannot absorb nutrient data, however it does love the sun. In fact, it loves the sun way more than its rookie form, and I think that we now have another point in common between the two lines. You see, Togemon is a cactus Digimon, and most cactus species grow in hot, dry, desert-like areas. Of course, they can also be found on mountains, or rainforests, or even near Antarctica, which surprised me, but the cactus is mostly seen in those sunny areas. And Togemon loves deserts and can survive in that area by absorbing nutrients. Sunflowmon gets more energy if it bathes in the sunlight. After all, Sunflowmon is based on the sunflower, and the sunflower can perfectly survive in the desert. And if we follow the logic, we will more likely come across a Togemon by going through a Digimon world's desert. Chances are just as high that you can and will encounter a Sunflowmon in a desert, because that is where it would get more sunlight and thus more offensive power. You can already imagine how in jungles the leaves of trees can block certain sun rays. That wouldn't be the case in the desert. That about sums it up why we have more chances of encountering a Togemon and a Sunflowmon in the desert. When you look at all attacks of Sunflowmon, the name Sunshine is used more time than not. Sunshine Beam, Sunshine Gun, Sunshine Bazooka, Sunshine Explosion. So, while I can imagine a Palmon or a Togemon migrating to a desert-like area, I can see Sunflowmon do the same. Floramon, Palmon's rival, you will see that it developed way differently than a Palmon. It was not that dependent on the sunshine, and this might explain why its line grew way more different than Palmon's, but we'll get there in another dedicated video. When it comes to their ultimate forms and how they suddenly turned into fairies, that is a mystery to me, and what I would simply call Digimon logic. I did receive some very interesting theories that try to explain this sudden metamorphosis. Leonardo Cephas said the following: looking at the biological, I have always seen Lalamon as the flower that is born from Togemon. If it is only the flower, there should still be a Togemon, but there is not. What happens? Does it dry and die, or maybe become a ghost? I think that these are very nice questions. You will indeed see that Lalamon basically comes out of a Togemon, and we don't know what happens with that Togemon. One thing is certain, if I have to continue with the comment of Leonardo Cephas, who claims that maybe Togemon died or became a ghost, Ponchomon is rumored to be a Togemon who died due to unforeseen circumstances. It's a ghost type that also lives its own life. For example, Ponchomon gets along with other Digimon like Bakemon. Really interesting how Digimon's story still continues despite them changing or even potentially dying. Ran Segev also said something very interesting. My theory, which is probably not true but fun anyway, is that one mimics the other. In nature, it's called biomimicry. It's when one weak animal poses as another bigger or more dangerous animal, like a butterfly with eyes patterns on its wings, or a fly who look like a wasp. That explains why they look so different as a rookie and champion before they evolve, meaning the mimicry, and so similar in their ultimate and mega form. Well, one thing is sure, both Lalamon and Lalamon look alike in the way that they are both humanoids covered in flower-based clothing. While they are similar in appearance, they completely changed in their offensive and defensive capabilities, which we'll discuss in a moment. Let me start with Lalamon. Out of the many attacks it has, 3 of them are named with flower. There is Flower Cannon, where it makes a gun muzzle from the petals on its wrist and fires an energy shell. Flower Wreath, where it zips an enemy and ties them up with a rope of vines and flowers, counteracting digital viruses and making certain Digimon obey its command. And we're going to get to that attack in a moment because it does say a lot about the Palmon line and how it differs from Lalamon. So suddenly Lalamon's attacks are very plant-based. I did notice that it can still absorb, like it could when it was a Palmon and a Togemon, but again, its attacks are very plant-based. Lalamon, on the other hand, grew very different when it comes to its attacking and defensive options, and those are not even based on the sun anymore. It can fire countless slender beams from its leaf-like fingers, it can bewitch the opponent by scattering lovely-smelling pollen, it can slap an opponent, causing them to instantly fall in love, it can create energy blades, emit electric shocks, so suddenly it became a very dangerous Digimon to approach. Now in my analysis I did notice one thing which sets the Lalamon line apart from the Lalamon line. You see, when you get back to Palmon all the way up to Lalamon, all of them have a certain temper, and that temper only seems to grow at the moment they jump to the next level. For example, when Palmon is joyful or happy, it will waft about a sweet fragrance, but when it is angered, or when it senses danger, it will release a foul stench that will drive off even large Digimon. When Togemon is angered, not only will its expression change completely, it will also start getting violent and becomes unable to settle down. As a LALAMON, it also has a similar temperament. It is difficult to settle down LALAMON when it starts crying. A great effort is necessary to win it over. And its attack, which was named Flower Wreath, that can make certain other Digimon obey its command, sound to me like the Digimon is one that loves to be in control, or in the least to be in the center of attention. And this is quite different with LALAMON, who also has techniques that can bewitch the other or even make the other fall in love. But LALAMON as a Sunflowmon, or even as a LALAMON, we don't know if it had, for example, a rivalry with Palmon or so. Nothing is really written about that or about its personality. We don't even know if it has a temper. That is anyway not what characterizes the Digimon. And I think that is what ultimately made LALAMON digivolve into LALAMON, a Digimon that looks pure and innocent and yet deadly when taken lightly. A rose has its thorns after all. And speaking of roses, Palmon's mega level is Rosemon, and according to sources, LALAMON can also digivolve to it. And I noticed in your comments that some were not happy with Rosemon also being a part of the line of LALAMON. Lilac wrote the following: there is actually no in-universe reason why LALAMON canonically have Rosemon as its ultimate level. LALAMON's final form was originally Lotusmon, but when Digimon Saviors was announced in 2005, Toei Animation made the decision of making Rosemon its final form instead, as they thought that Lotusmon seemed more like a villain and that Rosemon seemed more like a heroine. Now, I personally think the same way, to be honest. I feel like it doesn't really make sense, but here's a quote I found that kind of explains why LALAMON ultimately digivolved to Rosemon instead of Lotusmon. Here's the following. Yoshino's LALAMON cannot evolve into Lotusmon. Its natural evolution is that of a Rosemon. It is said that evolving via a Digivice has something to do with it. Now, I will put the link towards the article in the description box. I know it does not really make sense, but I would love to read all your comments involving this subject. Maybe make another video about it. I will put an announcement on my channel and I will give you the opportunity to express yourself, and we're going to discuss all your ideas. Now, speaking of expressing oneself, two comments actually gave me a different look to Rosemon, because I never really made the link that was made. Let me show you what I'm talking about. Diego Flores wrote the following: Rosemon is related to sex because of its inspiration with the red rose. Her form brings a BDSM, which stands for bondage and discipline, domination and submission, sadism and masochism. So, her form brings a BDSM vibe, and her attacks, using a whip and the other being a forbidden temptation, brings it even more. Andres Marrero wrote the following: it seems bafflingly that Rosemon willingly incorporates data on BDSM into her makeup, specifically since it is the mega to Mimi's partner. Mimi, who has the crest of sincerity. That gives an awful lot of mixed signals, and it is quite messed up, all for the sake of someone's fetish. These are very interesting point of views. It is indeed true that Mimi has the crest of sincerity, and you suddenly have a Digimon that kind of looks dairy, let me say it like that. So again, these are very, very interesting point of views, and I can certainly understand why the design might bother some. But then again, maybe in Digimon's defense, let me give you my take on this. I've always claimed that Digimon is sort of like this franchise that is perceived to be for a younger audience, mostly because it has been seen as a rival to Pokemon, to say the least. But if you really take a deep look to everything that is happening in Digimon, from the human characters to even the symbolic manifestation of certain Digimon, like for example Lucymon, who is a Digimon that is basically 100% identical to the biblical figure Lucifer, you cannot be surprised that at some given point you can see a Digimon character like Rosemon that has the appearance of a dominatrix. Now, to continue on the Rosemon line, I do believe that Rosemon in its character is the logical outcome of a line of Digimon that are heavily impacted by their temper. Rosemon's personality, however, is defined by its desires to remain beautiful forever. It is excessively self-conscious about it. Lotusmon, on the other hand, also seems to be the logical next form of LALAMON in the sense that they are graceful in their personality. Pay attention, dangerous, very dangerous, but graceful. And to be specific, Lotusmon's personality is ladylike in its calmness and grace, but just as dangerous, if not more dangerous than its entire line, especially when another refuses to do as she commands. And Andreas Marrero did summarize it quite well. Both Rosemon and Lotusmon are horrible and vain individuals. Rosemon will break you till you serve her unconditionally, treating you and yourself less than dirt to please her, which is entirely fabricated. Lotusmon will kill you if you decline her offer, no matter how polite and respectful you are in doing so. She will go into a frenzied fit and seek to kill you because of that, or trap you in an illusionary world where she is in total control. Both are horrible people, Digimon, who in their obsession with beauty defile themselves with the dominatrix aspect. So in that sense, despite the differences, we can say that both the Palmon line and the Lalamon line have quite a few similarities, may it be character-wise, design-wise, and symbolic-wise. However, while they have a jogress, a fusion, which we are going to be discussing in a minute, they do have more or less other variants, giving both lines their uniqueness. For example, there's a rumor that a Rosemon was placed under a spell and turned into Babamon, an ancient Digimon. It wears a tiferet around its neck, which you can also find on Rosemon. This does make me wonder who placed Rosemon under a spell. I think that can be a very interesting topic for another video. Rosemon also has other variants, for example Rosemon Burst Mode or Bancho Lilimon, but we're not going to go in depth into these characters. There is no reason to wrap them up in just one video, so let us take it slowly and dedicate different videos to it. Lotusmon also know a variant called Lotusmon, a Digimon that cannot be obtained naturally. It is the result of Akihiro Kurata's experiments. But again, I'm not really going to get into details because these really deserve their own videos. I would like to make an in-depth analysis on what has been going on, as well as explaining the character of Akihiro Kurata and what his plans were. Now to finish, I want to talk about the jogress, the fusion named Rafflesimon, a mega-level fairy Digimon said to be the largest flower in the digital world. There are many aspects about this Digimon that are of great interest. For example, I could not tell which family it belongs to, as sources did not really tell, on the contrary to Omnimon, who belongs to 4 families. Rafflesimon may have a beautiful appearance that enraptures all who lay eyes upon it, however the stench it emits is apparently out of this world. It does have a very sad story in the sense that its lifespan is extremely short, earning it the name Miraculous Power. A number of people fell for Rafflesimon's beauty at first sight and sought to find it again after a glance, but again it's going to be very challengeful to find Rafflesimon again, and all due to its short lifespan. And speaking of, it never expresses any pessimism about its looming death, and constantly yearns to live a normal life and dancing elegantly till the very last. In some way, it somehow makes me feel like it is being punished for its previous forms. For Rosemon, who above all wished to remain beautiful forever with a desire to dominate others, and Lotusmon, who is ready to attack you at the moment someone refuses its goodwill. Now it suddenly became this mega level that only has a few days at best to live. I do have to say that for its short lifespan, Rafflesimon does have a very powerful moveset, like firing strong projectiles. Try to imagine how strong that would be, knowing that we are talking about a fusion of 2 powerful mega levels. Another attack it has is called Wisselen, which is a Dutch word for change. To all those speaking Dutch, let me say the following. Ik heet jullie allemaal welkom in deze kanaal. Ik ben heel blij dat er ook andere Nederlandstalige mensen zijn die deze kanaal volgen. The attack Whistler is one where Rafflesimon sheds scales from its body. These scales cause anyone whose body they have latched onto to lose consciousness and turn into Rafflesimon's servants. A very typical technique considering Lotusmon and Rosemon's abilities to control others. I would want to finish the video with 2 very interesting comments. Not exactly to do with these 2 lines, but it was said that Rafflesimon was meant to be like the Omnimon equivalent of the flower lines fused. So I wonder which other popular Digimon lines do you think could make good fusions? And Horror replied with the following. Well, there is already Mastemon for Angel Woman and Lady Devimon, then there is Ancient Beatmon / Kabuterimon. It's meant to be kind of a fusion between the Kabuterimon and Kuwagamon lines, though I would like to see a proper fusion between Heracles Kabuterimon / Heracles Kabuterimon X and Grand Kuwagamon / Grandis Kuwagamon. Another would be with Ornismon and Hulmon / Valdurmon. For Deep Divers family, I think combination of Aegisdramon and Gigasidramon would be cool, since those are the super upgraded final forms of the 2 main Deep Divers Digivolution lines, meaning the Gammamon and Sidramon lines. Hexamon already is a fusion of two dragons. Voltobutamon is the Nightmare Soldier's fusion evolution, as both Vamdemon and Paedmon belong in the same evolution line, meaning Devimons, though honestly I would like to see a fusion between Belial Vamdemon and Grand Dracumon. Now I showed you this comment just to show you that there are quite a few fusions in Digimon, many of which are a combination of quote-unquote main Digimon, and these fusions are obviously very interesting considering that there's so much that can be told about them, or many comparisons that can be done, maybe in their raw power, techniques, story, etc. So make sure to subscribe as we're going to take a deep look at the Digimon lore. Hi guys, a big thank you for watching the video to the end. I really hope you enjoyed it, especially considering the time I put into making this one. I'd appreciate a thumbs up for it. I'm aware that I did not talk about some other forms of either Lalamon or Palmon. Please do not take that into account, at least in this video, because we're going to get there in another video. Just make sure that you write your thought on both lines and those aspects which you enjoyed or maybe did not enjoy about these two lines. To my Patreon supporters, do you remember that I told you I would bless you with some exclusive content? Well, go to my Patreon page. The first video of the Explaining Digimon characters is out. It's about the birth of the Digimon Emperor. Make sure to check it out. To those who are new on this channel, please make sure to subscribe as we are going to make sure to explore Digimon properly and thoroughly. We're not just going to take a look at those very popular Digimon, we're going to discuss every Digimon, also those who are less known. So please make sure to subscribe and check the different playlists which are always updated, that way you can catch up on newer and older videos, and make sure to check out the description box to see the links towards the videos I've been referring to.